Good evening, everybody. It's John here from Tutor to You, welcoming you along to another of our live streams for A-Level Economics. And tonight we're concentrating on market failure. Massive welcome to those of you joining line. Just having a look at my clock down here to see how many of you are here with us. Brilliant. Well done for joining us live. I'm desperately hoping that you're going to be joining in using the chat window with some of the activities that we've got set for you tonight. If you're watching this on replay, though, welcome to you as well. And of course, you can take a little bit more time over our fast-paced activities. Now, tonight I'm joined by maybe not quite so familiar faces. Certainly, we've got Nikki in the middle of the screen there and Pete on the right. Nikki, it's your first session for A-Level Economics in doing the live streams. I'm right, aren't I?
Yes, you are right. I'm looking forward to it.
Good stuff. And welcome to you. And welcome to Peter as well.
Hello, both. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you. Right, a quick reminder to everybody that we're going to be using a PowerPoint presentation over the next 25 minutes or so. That will be available for you to download as soon as we're finished, in case you want to look through any of the questions again. And of course, this is being recorded, so you'll be able to watch over anything that we say or do in the next 25 to 30 minutes. I think we're ready, guys. Shall we get started?
Let's get started.
Let's get started. Right.
Okay, we're going to start with some multiple choice questions. So question 1, get ready for this. Dentists may undertake non-essential dental work on patients. A likely explanation for this is, now you've got 4 options, just one is correct. Put in the chat window what you think is the correct answer. So, shortage of dentists, might that be it? External benefits resulting from dental care? Dental care is a public good? Or finally, would they undertake that non-essential work because of the existence of asymmetric information? Who's going to be first with an answer? Okay, we've got an answer in. Who else? So, Monty Starfish. So, let's have a look at that. We've got Fortune Oyobata coming in with B, Monty with D. We got a lot of question marks tonight. Let's have some confidence out there. Samuel Drew thinks B. Het Patel thinks B. So let's just double check on the question. Dentists may undertake non-essential dental work. The answer is actually D, the existence of asymmetric information. Dentists have more information and therefore might tell you need a filling even if you don't need one. But well done. Look at all those people putting in their answers. Be careful. Read the question very carefully. Right, let's move on. Question 2. Which of these statements describes partial but not complete market failure? So be very careful here. Think about it. We're looking for partial market failure. I'll let you have a read. So we got some answers flying in. Well done. We've got some, yes, look at all these correct answers coming in. Het Patel, Samuel Drew, Ed Neville, Bertie Evans, all correct. All correct. Fergus, Jasper, Alicia, all correct with answer A. Partial market failure. Market exists, but there is a misallocation of resources. You only get total market failure when public goods exist. So that's well worth revising. Well done. Stunning. All those perfect answers. Well done. Question 3. A cement manufacturing plant is dispersing dust particles into the air. It is producing at level Q1. So that's the one on the right. This is an example of. So have a look through. Be careful. Don't just jump at the first one necessarily. What do you think? So we've got cement manufacturing plant. There's your hint. It's a manufacturing plant. Samuel, you're so fast. Well done. Okay, Ed's come in with another. Het Patel's come in. Jack, look at these. Look at all these fantastic answers. They're all correct. Well done. You are absolutely right. It is a negative externality in production. So we can see that the social cost, the social cost is higher than the private cost because of the negative externality. Bertie, Monty Starfish. Oh, Monty, you've answered twice. Well done. That's clever. Right. Answer B is correct. Let's move on to our fourth multiple choice. Okay, here we go. How would an economist calculate the social cost of a market transaction? So we're looking for what makes up social cost. What is it made up of? So have a quick read through, see what you think. Vinatuff says B, the sum of external costs and the private costs. Are they right? Heck, you are on fire tonight. So is Ed. Julie, well done for joining in. Fergus, you're all over it as well. Answer is definitely B. The private costs plus the external costs gives you the social costs of a market transaction. Fantastic start. Flying start to all of you. Well done. I'm going to now hand over to Peter, who's going to take you through the next questions.
Thanks very much, Nikki. So what we've got here is an activity called Categorise. You're going to have 60 seconds to categorise the 8 items that are on screen, and they all relate to wind farms, but you need to categorise them into one of the following. Okay, so they're all about wind farms. Does the item in question relate to private costs relating to wind farms? Does it relate to external costs? Does it relate to private benefits, so those that are internal to the exchange, or is it external benefits? Is it those positive spillovers from wind farms? So private costs, external costs, private benefits, and external benefits. So it'd be great to see lots of answers in the chat window. You might want to write something like EB and then the numbers that you think are external benefits, etc. So we'll give you 60 seconds starting from now. We're almost halfway there. Got any thoughts? Pop those numbers into the chat window. Okay, so let me just take a look into the chat. I haven't seen anything pop up yet. I'll give you a couple more seconds. Let's just have a think whilst we're waiting to see if there are any contributions coming through. Thank you very much for that, Bertie. You're the first one in there. I know there's a lot to do there in 60 seconds, so don't worry too much if you haven't got them all. Just pop in any thoughts that you have whatsoever. So Bertie's gone for private costs, being number 5. So labour costs, well, that will be a private cost that's incurred when the wind farm is either going to be built or it needs to be maintained. So that would be wages and salaries of engineers, perhaps. He's then gone for external 6 as well. Sorry, I didn't spot that one. The cost of land and planning permission, that would have to be bought from a local authority or maybe a private developer. External costs have gone for 3 and 7. So visual pollution for some people. Yeah, some people don't like wind farms. They say it's an eyesore and they prefer that it wasn't in their backyard. So that's number 3, visual pollution. Falling property prices. So people might not want to live next to a wind farm, and therefore there's a decrease in demand for houses, let's say, and therefore the price subsequently falls. So that's a really interesting observation there, Bertie. Thanks for that one. Private benefits, we've gone for number 2, which is lower taxpayer subsidies required in the long run. And external benefits 1, 4, and 8. So I've had a go at trying to explain a couple of them there. We haven't actually checked the answers yet, have we? So if we can reveal all, please, John. Right. So I think that was actually a really good attempt. So thank you very much. Let's just go over this. We went through the cost of land and planning permission, labour costs as being private costs. But you also got external costs there of 3 and 7. Private benefits, we went for 2 here. So let's just have a think about why there's that slight difference. So there's going to be a less of an impact on personal health than fossil fuels. So when an individual, in inverted commas, consumes the wind farm, that's going to have that's not going to have an impact on their health in comparison to what fossil fuel consumption would. Increased fossil fuel consumption and pollution often leads to asthma, etc., which is it's an external cost. It's external to the exchange from those who are involved in the initial transaction. So I think we've got a slight difference there, but hopefully we can see why less of an impact on personal health is a private benefit. With regard to external benefits, so fewer harmful gases are emitted, that's going to benefit those that are involved outside of the initial transaction, as is employment that's generated, multiplier effects in the local economy. And the external benefit is the final external benefit, which we this is where our difference in thought was, is lower taxpayer subsidies required in the long run. So taxpayers will benefit from wind farms being produced because they might not be used to subsidise other forms of energy generation. So thank you very much. Again, don't worry if you took a while there. There was quite a lot to do. Thanks for the contributions. I'm now going to hand you over to Nikki for the bubble quiz.
Hi again. Right, the bubble quiz. This is great, this one. This was really, really good fun. And it's harder than multiple choice because with multiple choice, there's just one answer. Here, there could be 0 correct answers. There could be 1, 2, 3, or 4 answers. So you really have to read the question carefully and think about it. So here we go. Question 1. When the government taxes goods with external costs, this always creates a price ceiling, an information gap, a price floor, or a deadweight loss to society. What do you think? Let's see those answers coming in. What do you think? What's the correct answer? Or indeed, are any of them correct? How many of them are correct? Shout out Mr. Murray. We've got. Ha. Okay, so let's have a think. When the government taxes goods with external costs, this always creates. Bertie, what do you think? You think none of them. Oh, have you changed your mind? Brodie Fitz thinks C. Jasper Brown thinks C. Fergus thinks C. When the government taxes, so remember a price floor might be also known as a minimum price. This is different. This is a tax. Does anybody want to change their name now? Change their opinion now? Let's have a think and see. So when the government taxes goods with external costs, this always creates. You were right in the first place, Bertie. The answer is none of them. So well done, Bertie. Okay, let's move on to question 2. Which of the following actions should improve the occupational mobility of labour in the UK? So we've got option A, a reduction in evening classes offered. B, the construction of the HS2 rail link. C, improvements in vocational training. Or D, a reduction in house price differentials. Okay, Harman thinks B. Heptel thinks B. Fortune B. So remember, we're looking for an improvement in occupational mobility. Occupational. mobility. So that's the ability to move between jobs, to have the right skills that you can do several different jobs or many, many different jobs and swap between them. So we've got a variety of answers. Lots of people coming up with B. Aha, now we're getting C, 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 C. Lots of answers C. I think you'll find we've got Fergus coming in with B, C, and D. If we have a look at the answer, please, John, we'll see that improvements in vocational training, because this will allow you to have more skills so you can switch between jobs, which is what occupational mobility is about. What B will give you is geographical mobility, because with the HS2 rail link, you'll be able to move and to get a job in a different area. The same with option D, that a reduction in house price differentials will allow you to move from one area of the country to another. So B and D would give you geographical mobility. It is only C that gives you occupational mobility. Well done, all those people who chose C. Little bit of revision for those who didn't. Okay, question 3 on the bubble quiz. Which of the following characteristics would apply to a public good? Now be very careful, this is not a publicly provided good, but a public good as in market failure. We referred to it earlier, they cause total market failure or complete market failure. So Ewan is saying A and D. Eclipse 89 is saying A. Jasper, A, C and D. A and D, these are all fantastic answers. Okay, depending on your exam board, some exam boards include non-rejectable, but the answer non-rival, non-rejectable, non-excludable is correct. If you've never heard of non-rejectable, don't worry, your exam board might not include it. As long as you understand non-rivalrous and non-excludable are the characteristics of public goods, that's good enough. Non-rejectable is a bonus. Well done, everyone. That's fantastic.
Thanks very much for that, Nikki. So this is one of my favourite activities, the connection spinner. What we're going to ask you, we're going to present a number of different categories on screen, and we're going to ask you for a real life example. So it's a really good opportunity to practice some application. So here we go. What will happen here? The spinner will, as if by magic, begin to spin, and it will land on one of these options. So can you give me a real life example of a free rider problem? So using some of your real world knowledge of economics, can you give me some scenarios as to where a free rider problem might come across? Okay, so Eclipse 89's in with NHS, then Fortune and Vinner have come in with street lighting. Het's come in with roads, as is Brown Jasper with roads. Harmon, you lampposts but don't pay for them. Yeah, the military. Streetlight is a public good with Jahib again with that one. Apologies if I mispronounce anyone's name. Flood defences from Bertie there. Lots and lots of interesting ideas and examples coming around here. It's clear that some of you have remembered this work from market failure from last year, and we did public goods. So it's really good to see that you've made that link. Let's take a look at some of the options that we came up with. So we've gone a little bit away from some of those more conventional examples that you might have come across in textbooks or in past data response questions. Fly tipping, so someone else bears the cost, and someone actually, when they're disposing their rubbish, they do so illegally, and someone's taken advantage of that, and clearly someone else therefore has to pay for the cleanup. Tax evasion, when someone avoids paying taxes, but others, of course, pay their fair share and pay their due. So someone's free riding on the payments of others. And a really common one that's probably been clamped down on quite a lot over the past 5 to 10 years is digital file sharing. Okay, someone pays for a digital file and then shares it with a friend or a colleague, and therefore someone gets the benefit, but they haven't paid for the initial transaction. And of course, there's loads of safeguards in place, isn't there, by companies in the real world to actually prevent that. But it might be a nice example that you could use in an essay if your exam board requires you to make reference to a market of your own choice. Which I know that the Edexcel board does for those of you who study Edexcel A. So some really good examples coming in the chat window there. Thanks very much for that, folks. Let's have another look. Let's roll the spinner again. Put the spinner to work again, I should say. And let's see where it's going to land now. A public bad. Okay, so you might not have come across this term explicitly on your specifications, but think of a public bad as being the opposite of a public good. Okay, again, it exhibits the same features of a public good. It's non-excludable and it's non-rival. Then it imposes negative externalities on others. So let's take a look in the chat. So Fergus coming in with I'm sure I saw something from Fergus there. Maybe a comment was deleted, but we've got air pollution and then crime, pollution. Again, there's Fergus with smoking. It was just my computer being a little bit slow. Some interesting examples so far. A couple of seconds to see if anyone's got any others littering. Julie's coming in with drugs, consumption of industrial waste. Hackers is an interesting example. So all of these examples that have come through in the chat window, if you think about the definition that I said earlier, that's going to impose an external cost on someone else, and it's the opposite of a public good. Some really well thought through points there. Excellent stuff, folks. Let's take a look at what we had. We had web viruses. So I think someone mentioned hacking in the chat window there. So a web virus is something that's obviously going to be imposed on others, and someone else is going to bear the cost of that. So some horrific stories in the news to hear about things like that, particularly ransomware, disposal of household and commercial wastes. And another example that you could slot into an essay somewhere, that when waste is disposed of, it's going to impose externalities on others, negative externalities on others, particularly if there's incineration that involves further pollution into the atmosphere. And we've also got gender discrimination in labour markets. So that's obviously when discrimination against someone of a specific gender depresses the wage rate, and therefore that has a negative impact on the individual that's being discriminated against. Okay, I think we've covered all the points there. Some really good contributions in the chat window. I'm now going to pass you over to Nikki for On Balance.
Right, okay, so now we're going to do a little exercise called On Balance, and I'm going to ask you for one argument for and one argument against state provision of public good. So first of all, I'd like just the arguments for. So just type a few words about an argument, giving me an argument for state provision of a public good. Why does the government or a state have to provide a public good? So this might be, for example, in your own words, you've mentioned the defence or the military, or it could be courts and justice, or it could be street lighting that you've mentioned. So Fergus has said, so everybody has access to the good, and Jasper has said no discrimination. This is fantastic. This is what I want. I want arguments for the state provision of a public good. Okay, what we're after is, why should the government step in to provide that public good. Can you remember what I said about a public good? It causes complete market failure. Okay, Camille, usually left behind by the free market. Exactly, that's what we mean. Harman, unprovided by the free market. So if the government didn't step in, then this product with this market would not exist. So it's underconsumed, underproduced in the free market. Yes, of course. So perfect. Let's see if we can have some arguments on the screen for state provision. So the government, remember this, the government may be more efficient at providing it, because if the government provides this for the whole economy, then they may be able to achieve economies of scale. Now, economies of scale might not be something that you've studied yet, but you've probably heard about it in the news. It means if something is provided on a sufficient scale, a large scale, it might be cheaper. So having one government providing it might actually be a lot cheaper than lots of individual firms. A second argument for state provision is these arguments that you're coming up with tonight. So well done, that's fantastic. State provision may help to prevent under-provision, under-consumption, so that social welfare is improved. So remember that, going right back to the incentives, economic agent incentives. Our government is one of our economic agents. Their incentive, what they want to maximise, is social welfare. And by providing this public good themselves, they can maximise social welfare. Excellent, well done. Now I'm going to ask you for your thoughts about why the government shouldn't provide the public good. Why do you think it might not be? Bertie, straight in there. Opportunity costs in terms of alternative spending by the government like defence and street lighting. What a stunning answer. Okay, you're on fire, Bertie. Well done. Wish you were my student. Okay, so it might be that it's just so expensive, and while the government's busy providing this public good, it cannot actually it doesn't have enough money to provide other public goods or provide or correct other market failures. Harman, free rider problem. Yes, remember the free rider problem is what causes the good to be called a public good in the first place and causes the market failure. Once the government has provided it, and if they provide it free of charge for a whole economy, then we don't have free riders. So take defence, if you like. We all pay through it through our taxes. So somebody who doesn't pay taxes, we wouldn't technically say they were free riding, because we can't actually stop them from having that public good provided to them. Let's see what we've got coming up on the screen. If the government becomes a monopoly, there is a danger of a lack of efficiency. Okay, Alicia's absolutely right. Everyone has to pay for them even if they don't use them or don't want them. That's very true. You might have to pay for street lighting in a nearby town when you don't even live there. Camille, that's a little bit of a political point there. Fergus is absolutely right. Can be inefficient if the government provides it. And remember that if you have the alternative, the public-private provision, it might bring in a profit maximizing aspect, and that might not be in the interest of public welfare. So, for example, if you had the public sector paying for food in schools, then that food might be junk food as private providers try to maximize their profits on that food served to those children in schools. So some great arguments there on both sides. You're doing really well. I'm going to hand back to Peter for the last challenge.
Hello again, folks. Unfortunately, we've reached our final activity of the evening, and it's a 60-second challenge. This time, the market failure that we're going to look at is information failure, information gaps. And what we'd like you to do is to match the cause of information failure on the left-hand side of the screen with its example on the right. So it'd be wonderful in the chat window if you think B matches with 1, for example, put B1, etc. Okay, so we are going to be generous, and we're going to give you a minute this time. we can start the clock. Off we go. Whilst John's setting the chat, it is quite tricky, this one. Think carefully. We're looking for the letter and the number next to one another. Which ones we can match up. Okay, there's some points coming through now. 1, 2, 3. Very well done indeed. If you put something, I know that 60 seconds isn't an awful long time. There's lots of information to digest there and think, well, what's going to match with what on each side of the screen. So we've got Eclipse 89 matching A and 1 and C and 3. Fergus has gone with E and 4, D and 1, C and 5, B 2, A and 3, and Brown Jasper has replicated that one, put the same underneath. Not saying that you're replicating from Fergus's point there, Brown Jasper, but you've put in the same as well. So really well done. If you manage to think about that, if you're watching this on replay, obviously go back through this and you might want to justify why one particular thing is what it is, why you've matched that, just to help develop those analytical skills. So let's take a look at what we matched together. A, we matched with number 2. There might be a slight delay, so sorry folks if I'm a little bit behind there. We matched A with 2, so misunderstanding the true costs and benefits. An example of that might be the side effects of an individual using a tanning salon. Okay, so you might actually overconsume a tanning salon because you actually aren't aware of what the potential side effects are, which of course, unfortunately, as we know, are skin cancer. Okay, uncertainty about costs and benefits. This might be applicable to some of you in the next few years. Okay, that you get your first pay packet and you want that, you want all of that money to yourself. You're not really concerned about how much money you're going to have when you're 65, 70, when you're retired. So younger workers buying into a pension scheme, they're uncertain about the longer term benefits of that. So then they're dissuaded from doing so. They'd rather have the money now. However, one of the things that the government have introduced in the last few years is auto enrolment into pension schemes. So they're giving a bit of a nudge there and directing individuals so they actually have to opt out of pension schemes rather than opting in. Scenario where we've got complex information provided by a supplier might be when you're purchasing a gas boiler alternative. Now, just out of curiosity, does anyone know what some gas boiler alternatives might be? So what might the government be trying to persuade people to install in their homes rather than gas boilers? Has anyone got any ideas? Nothing coming through in the chat window just yet, so I am conscious of time. So it might be an air source heat pump. It could be electric. Thank you for that contribution there, Alicia. You might have a air to water heat pump or an air to air heat pump. So the ground source heat pumps, if you ever see them, they're big rectangular-like structures, and they're often sat outside a house with big pipes feeding in. That's what an air source heat pump is. So the government are at the moment giving subsidies they were given subsidies to try and encourage people to buy air source heat pumps. So that is a complex information, isn't it? Because as individuals, we don't actually think about those sorts of transactions on an everyday basis. An example of inaccurate or misleading information might be an advert that falsely claims good environmental impacts. Okay, so therefore that leads to further overconsumption, possibly, of a particular good or service. And this one's cropped up in many exam papers in the past. Habitual consumption, habitual purchases, favourites, a favourites list on someone's online grocery shop that may be pre-populated by the retailer, forces, or rather encourages people to buy the same again. So it's that information gap, that information provision, that if someone had more complete information, it might actually change their purchasing decisions, and their welfare might be better off. So thank you very much for those contributions. We've come to the end.
We have indeed, Peter. Well, brilliant evening once again. I think this is our fifth one in this series of live streams, and the answers have just been absolutely phenomenal. Again, I'm going to try and read out some names as I always do. We've had so many answers in tonight, so forgive me if I miss your name out here. Bertie, Fortune, Monty, Alicia, Samuel, Het Patel, Eclipse 89, Julie, Iamar, Jack. I've got a KX Mill, Fergus, Brown, Jasper, Brody, Ed, Vinod, Devanshi, Ewan, Harmon, Jamie, Shajib. Massive apologies if I've missed your name off there. Thank you so much, as always, for some of those fantastic answers. Also, big thank you, of course, to Nikki and Peter for delivering those activities. Quick reminder to you, if you've enjoyed this evening and found it useful, please do give us a little like in YouTube. That means more people will be alerted to these episodes being on. We're back again next Tuesday evening, where we're back to thinking about some macro topics. I think we're on economic growth next week. A reminder as well, of course, that the PowerPoint will be available in just a few moments as soon as this live stream finishes. And that the recording of this video, of course, will also be made available. Brilliant stuff. Wonderful. And thanks again to Peter and Nikki, and we'll see you all next week. Goodbye, everybody.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
No.